Father and son architects. Why don't we see this more often? Coming up on Architecture CodeX.
Architecture CodeX. If you want to see more, subscribe.
No one in my family before me was an architect, and yet the profession of architecture often runs in families. Perhaps it's because these skills are genetically based, or perhaps it's because the parent architect can foster the talents of their child. So while indeed all my 3 children are smart, talented, and good people, only one has decided to enter the profession of architecture. Perhaps he was inspired by my projects. Perhaps I was able to foster those skills at a young age. But given my limits, this explains why he is becoming an architect and not a major league left-handed pitcher throwing 95-mile-an-hour fastballs. Today, there are about 116,000 licensed architects in America, and it is rare for any architect to break through to become famous. And it is even more rare for that fame to be multi-generational. One exception are the father and son, Eliel and Eero Saarinen. Maybe it was easier back then in the 1960s when there were only 30,000 architects. But looking at their portfolio, perhaps there is no better place to compare their work than to go back to Columbus, Indiana, where both architects designed churches. When the Tabernacle Church of Christ, the original name, needed a new large church, they considered traditional style. But the grandson of the pastor had taken an architecture appreciation course at Yale, and he convinced them to consider modernism. The grandson was J. Irwin Miller, who eventually would lead Cummins Engine, the family business, and create the Cummins Foundation that would promote world-class architecture in Columbus, Indiana. One of the things that the church elders, including the Reverend Zachary Taylor Sweeney, his wife Lily Irwin, her brother W.G. Irwin, and the Reverend's daughter Nettie Sweeney Miller, who is J. Irwin's mother. It's okay, I'm confused too. One of the things they expressed was that the church should be beautiful but not ostentatious, such that even a poor person in Columbus would feel intimidated to worship there. The search led them to the Finnish-born but now American architect Eliel Saarinen, the son of a Finnish Lutheran minister. They considered Frank Lloyd Wright, but they found his personal history unsavory. Gottlieb Eliel Saarinen was born in 1873 in Finland, where he established his reputation as an architect with projects like the Finnish Pavilion at the Paris 1900 World's Fair. In 1923, he immigrated to America with his second wife, Loja, daughter Eva-Lisa, and son Eero, who was just 13 years old at the time. He moved because his American reputation was established by his entry-winning second place in the competition for the Chicago Tribune building, Architecture Codex video number 30. Afterward, he had commissions for the Cranbrook Educational Community, a kind of American Bauhaus, and other projects while teaching at the University of Michigan. Eliel Saarinen built the first Christian church in Columbus, Indiana in 1942. It was, to my knowledge, the first modern church that did not have a hint of tradition or sentiment in it. While it had the 2 main parts that iconically recall church, a nave and a tower, both are reductionist in their geometry. That's architect speak for saying they are boxy. There are also church offices, a religious school, and auditorium. The intellectualized point-line plane geometry of modern architecture keeps those lines and shapes simple. The materials are also simple: brick, limestone, glass, and wood, something that we have come to appreciate with Scandinavian design. Given the artistic simplicity of the building, it makes no sense for me to embellish it with more words just to get you to appreciate it. Let's simply say that if you are a modern architect trying to design transcendent space, you need to take a look at this building. It appears that both Eliel's wife Loja and son Eero worked on this project. Eero would have been almost 30 years old when this design was occurring. The religious community still uses the facility today, albeit it appears with a diminished population, which makes the burden of maintaining the building difficult. and like most buildings, it has been aging for the last 80 years. Since 2014, the entire Columbus community has organized efforts to restore and preserve the church. Architecture CodeX keeps coming back to Columbus, Indiana because of J. Irwin Miller's work promoting good architecture through his 1954 Cummings Foundation, which sponsors the commission costs of architects, allowing the city to hire world-renowned architects for their projects. Elio died in 1950, and Eero, his son, appears to have started a completely new firm shortly after. Eero Saarinen returned to Columbus to work with J. Irwin Miller to design 3 more buildings: the Miller House, Architecture Codex video number 54, the Irwin Union Bank and Trust, and the North Christian Church. The North Christian Church was completed in 1964. This design is more spaceshipy, with the spire soaring up from the middle of this hexagonal-shaped church. Spires, towers, tall naves, and other elements that reach upward to the heavens are kind of iconic as church design, and this church brands that soaring upwards in a visually astounding new way. The exterior form expresses the interior space that achieves transcendence by the massive sloping roofs rising to the center and supporting the spire, which, like a Renaissance church lantern, allows light to permeate the space from a single point above. In one sense, this recalls the ancient Pantheon, Architecture Codex video number 104, a dome with an oculus. This design is also so simple and dramatic that my adding more words will not do it justice. When I got there in 2022, I could not get inside the building. I did not know that the Christian community there had shut down and that they were in the process of selling the building to the county to be a branch of their library system. It is a shame that such a transcendent space will no longer be used to worship God, but perhaps a library is the right kind of adaptive reuse that will allow the building to be preserved. Eero also designed other iconic buildings and may rival Frank Lloyd Wright for being the architect with the most videos on this channel, including the very first Architecture Codex video on the TWA terminal at JFK. It is fun to design churches because the clients are usually interested in the concept of forever, and consequently, they are interested in using quality materials and better than ordinary aesthetics. And finding ways to create transcendent space using light, loft, and craft is a delightful architectural challenge. These days, churches and houses of worship tend not to be the richest clients. For whatever reason, foundations and private citizens just do not donate to these projects the way they do for hospitals, museums, or performing arts centers. Or maybe religious vision is so personal that people stay in their religious lane when being charitable for religious buildings. Of course, it might be saying something about the values of our society, how few churches are full on the Sabbath. There are a lot of other houses of worship in Columbus, Indiana that are worth reviewing, and maybe someday we will get to each of them. In the meantime, we celebrate the father and son architectural team of Eliel and Eero Saarinen, and it appears that none of Eero's children have become architects. Architects and parents try to find significance by what or who they leave behind. And for most architects, it may be a stunning fact that our children will be a more significant legacy than any of our projects. This may be tough for architects because we tend to have more design skills than we have people skills. But to be frank, what kid wants to hear, "You know, when I was your age, we hand-drafted pencil on paper using triangles and T-squares and 4 feet of snow"? I'm Michael Molinelli, and this is Architecture Codex.